Battlegrounds aplenty as we are in the mid-rounds of the season. We all get set for racing action around the Red Bull Ring. Your radical SimRacing.com European Championship for 2025, powered by Radical Motorsport and RaceData.ai, brings itself into focus and now comes to a track where overtaking is critical. Not just how you do it, but when you do it as well. Welcome to RaceSpotTV's coverage here today. My name's Jake Sperry, JR Gregory, along with me for the ride as we get ourselves set and ready. Qualifying has just got itself underway here at the Red Bull Ring, but let's take a look at what makes this track so special. And from a pay-per-view, JR, it doesn't look like much, but this is one of the hilliest circuits at the base of the Styrian Mountains.
Super tough circuit here. They've been actually racing here since 1969. Goes back to the old Österreich ring, and this current configuration opened in 2011. And if you look at that turn one, it's just one example of the requirement of precision around here. That is actually a corner that you can overslow for, that somehow turns these mad radicals into momentum cars. So very disciplined braking there, super precise turn in to avoid the sausage curb on the inside and avoid running wide. And there's a couple corners like that out here, Jake, where extreme precision is required, and these drivers are going to have to keep it up for 60 straight minutes.
60 straight minutes, 2 pit stops on the docket, but this is your championship schedule. We're averaging just about one a month, and they know they've got Fuji on the horizon in August, no running in July, and then the Hockenheim ring will come into focus for September. So those will be a couple of rounds. Those final ones in October yet to be decided, but your championship suddenly here has now got very close in pro. Just 2 points splitting Christoph Lipp and Christopher Ryan.
Yeah, very clogged up here at the top, and some really interesting developments. We've got 2 winners, Lipp and Tavarin, that have won twice. Barry has won once, but what has placed Lipp at the top? He has podiumed in 5 out of 5 rounds. Tavarin with 3 podiums, Barry with 1. But my eyes for the rest of the season are on James Barry. He let us know that he's going to be putting in the grind, putting in the preparation to finish this season strong, and he is certain to move up out of that P4.
Yep, he'd certainly love to jump up. The likes of Horvath Gullikson there in 3rd position. His next challenge at just 7 points back as it goes. AM category will also be an interesting scenario to keep in mind. But the Team Pro standings, first and foremost, Inert iRacing Team 2 leading Team 1, and now moving to a 70-point buffer ahead of the 2 IGL Coatings and Sander Traffic Scholar Performance and Precision teams there in with 574 and 529 points. Nix Esports find themselves in 5th ahead of the 3rd one, which is Passion, I would believe, in 6th position, and then Inert iRacing Team 3 in 7th on 403 points. Luke Crowley now to the point when it comes to action. Of course, the drop round coming in certainly helping out. Eric Benson is the one making the charge at 16 points adrift.
And this one, interesting, Jake, as well. No repeat winners so far. 5 rounds, 5 different winners. That's Crowley, Berger, Krieg, Benson, and Sikorsky. And Crowley, Berger, and Craig with 3 podiums apiece. That has them up top, and those points totals reflect 2 drop weeks. So things are going to get really interesting in this one down the stretch before we take our July break.
Oh, it certainly will. And the B Team Racing are on top as the team standings go. Team Slow-Mo find themselves a bit further back. Project 91 Academy then in 3rd position. Team Moop, which is a fantastic team name, is in 4th position ahead of the Octopus Racing team. They may have 8 legs, but they've only got 41 points to share between all 8 appendages out there at this moment. But as things have gone about, last time out was an incredible amount of sim racing from the mountain. Mount Panorama Bathurst, and it proved to be one of the most important rounds for many a driver that looked to put it in together. Kettle Larson took the pole, and then Franek Sikorsky got the front row once more, but it's all about keeping it together. It was a clean start at the front of the field. That was key, but it was the contact between Christoph Lipp and Lasse Sorensen that got interesting, but it was ruled a racing incident.
Yeah, that one kicked around on the Discord channel over on Radical Sim Racing for a little while. A little controversy there, but I just saw that as good hard racing, a little bit of bumping, and no fault was determined on either driver, as you said.
Yeah, no fault there. The top three running about, keeping themselves close. Barry, Lip, and Larson, who are up there at the top, which led to a good battles as well going on in both Am and Pro, because you had the likes of Louis Gregg also keeping himself in play. Gabriel Berger was looking to make some progress along with Oscar Soltero. It was Soltero on the inside, but some great running around the outside kept things in play. But those two pit stops look to prove to be very, very important. And just over with 20 minutes to go, we saw the final strategy pull itself into play, and the work was certainly very much there for Kjetil Larsen and James Barry, who came out pretty much together at 0.3 of a second apart and looking to make their race known. There was also a case of Greg taking away in the pits and moving out, and that would have given the AM category win there to Louis Gregg.
Yeah, great stuff here. And watch James Barry attacking this pit entry. I went back and watched this a couple times, and it's a very difficult pit entry there at Bathurst. But when tenths count, as they do at the pointy end of this field, you got to roll the dice, bang it over that curbs, and get up to the line in a cloud of smoke. And you saw Barry do that there.
Yeah, Barry did a very good job. It was on in a case of twos up the mountain that they went, because you had the likes then of Barry and Larson, Gullikson and Lip, and then Lip and Sorensen, who were there 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and just enough of a hold heading to the line for James Barry to pick up his victory and get exactly what he wanted there, the run to the checkered flag. Sebastian Lip would pick up third position, then crossing over the line, leaving Christoph Lip down in just P5. So ultimately, a case of a bit of work to be done for some. Louis Gregg picking up a victory and doing so magnificently. Qualifying currently finds itself underway. Of course, we're now down to the final 3 minutes, and at the moment, it's a case of lip service at the top of the timings right now, first and second. But look at Pablo Serrano. What a qualifying he's having. Up in 6th is the AM.
Yeah, Pablo is laying down the law. Not a familiar name to me. I don't know if he's fresh in the league for this round, but he might find himself reclassified depending on how he does here. But yeah, folks, if you're used to driving a GT3 car, you know those times are flying. That 125.4 by Lip is a couple seconds quicker than a GT3 and tickling the rear of an LMP3 car. So these radicals are no joke. 450 horsepower, 1,000 pounds less than an MX-5 Cup car. These things are serious, and you're going to see some serious racing here today.
Yeah, there's the 113 machine out there of Jorge Gonzaga, who is currently looking to pilot about in 12th position. Out of laps then on lap number 5, so this is just getting practice in. And actually, as I look around, the only driver out there who's on a 4th lap, so to speak, is in 9th place, and that's the number 7 car of Saudi Raitanen, who is there at the moment. So for Gonzaga, it's just a case of getting that last element of practice in. You see a number of sim racing drivers look to do that as the Portuguese driver runs around and looks to move through the grass corner here, turn number 7, and over towards the likes then of the 9th corner on the track at Jochen Rindt. But for Sally Raitanen, the only one who can improve on a 25.8, a couple tenths of a second, and that would be good enough for the second row.
And my goodness, look at this timing tower. Our top 21 cars, 0.8 of a second apart, and that just shows you the level of competition out here in these spec cars. All the cars are identical, the setups are fixed, and what a test of driving. This is one of 9, Jake, Formula One tracks on this season's public schedule, and these cars perform beautifully out on these F1 tracks at speed.
Franek Sikorsky then P10. That sounds like work to be done as far as qualifying goes for him. Kim-Andre Björklund also out on track 19th. Won't be too pleasing for the pro to be down that far. But it's also interesting to note that this is one of the sorts of circuits where if you can get the style of it correct, you absolutely get there. And the bounty hunter, Stefan Mellis, down in 26. So everybody on his bounty as it goes. But But with 20 seconds remaining here and qualifying very quickly about to find itself to a close, I think now is as good a time as any to say we can run through the starting grid's worth of action just as the session ticks over, to say that it was a dominant qualifying. So we take a look at that beautiful inert iRacing livery out there with the red that runs on beside it. It is the two Lips who are in control, and the number one of Christoph Lipp has the pole, and it's Sebastian Lipp alongside for company. Rudolf Nagel then for SimRC, and Lasse Sorensen are on the second row with Kjetil Larsen and James Barry on 5th and 6th, the two who fought, of course, 1 or 3 weeks ago. Pablo Serrano, who has been a little bit, I would say, of a ghost in the amateur category, finds himself for Nix Esports in 7th, with Horvath Gulliksen in 8th. Sally Raitanen and Franik Sikorsky make up the top 10 of the field, with Oscar Soltero and Jorge Gonzaga making up 11th and 12th. It's then Dennis Kyriakopoulos in 13th, ahead of Mats Gjestrombakken, who will feel very out of place in 14th, ahead of Andreas Friedrich and Luke Crowley, the AM category championship leader. Louis Craig is in 17th alongside Ewan Bremer, who is there in 18th, with Kim Andre Björklund and Eric Benson then rounding out the top 20 for Team Slow-Mo. Menno de Graaf is there for Verkro Racing Team, with Robert Walker in 22nd. Gabriel Berger and Ollie Gunnar Stensrud make up 23rd and 24th. The final row being Guy Robertson and Stefan Mellis. Then waiting on these drivers, then the final drivers to get themselves into position. I believe Pablo Serrano is one of the last to get into gridding place. They've got 2 minutes to do so, but if all drivers grid up, then they can start a lot quicker than that as they get themselves ready. A very tight run up towards turn number 1 at the Red Bull Ring. The Niki Lauda curve, as it is known, is one of the most, I would say, jutting corners in all of motorsport. Nothing truly like it. Maybe Degner number 1 is the closest thing, but it does not have the profile of the uphill run, and it is menacing each and every time you take that run up that section. Who is going to stamp their name down and say they have got what it takes? Just waiting on Oscar Soltero to get his position, and then we are ready and set. There is Soltero populating. Let's get ourselves an into play. Radical Sim Racing brings itself into play. Round 6 into the second half of the season. Lights on, lights out, underway. We will go. Good start there by Christoph Lipp. Sebastian Lipp will find himself with a bit of company. Sorensen has had a great start. Leapfrogs Nagel as they go up into the Niki Lauda curve for the first time. James Barry up into 5th. Almost a tiny bit of contact, but they all managed to run their way through unscathed. Perfect as they go for a start. But for the Lips, they have got themselves away. Sorensen, the one giving the chase.
Beautiful start by these guys. No traction control on these cars. Dead cold tires, getting those cars off the line with 450 horsepower. That turbo spools up, the power delivery a little peaky, and it takes an awful lot of skill just to get these things moving, and a great job there.
Might be a bit peaky when it comes to the power, but if you want to try and get a move, you're going to have to be a bit of a peaky blinder if you want to try and get that sorted, because it is very tough at times to make these passes. Battling it down, then through turn 4 at Rauk, back up the hill through turn 5 into turn, well, this turn 5 here, this left 6, and then over towards turn 7, the grass corner, which comes along next. But it is going to be about who can manage themselves in the early stages. Pablo Serrano has had a very nice start as leading AM. He's in 6th position, but under threat, because here comes James Barry, who's lost a couple places here off of this start. Lost a place, but he's gained the place he's lost straight back there at Jockenrindt. Easy pass done. And remember, we got a very wide pit window, 2 stops required, but this is going to be one of the highest fuel use surfaces that we have all season long. Here comes the look back now from Horvath Gulliksen.
Yeah, Gulliksen going to take a little peek down there inside of turn 1. Not close enough, but he wants his competitor in front of him to remember that he's there. And yes, the pit window is open right now. They could come in at any time. By my fuel calculations, the maximum they can go on their 20-liter opening load is about 11 laps, and we're probably going to see most of the leaders run it dry for 11 laps. And so we're just getting warmed up here.
Oh, a huge wiggle in the back, and I think it was Andreas Friedrich there on the right-hand side, the backer shot, who loses 4, 5, 6 places then. Kim-Andre Bjorklund through, Crowley and Kyriakopoulos and Bremer and Gjerstrom Bakken all through. Side by side down the bottom of the hill here at route corner, Frank Sikorsky, wrong side of Horvath Gullikson. Can't quite get the password and can't quite find a way through. But for the moment, it is that calm that we experience here at the front of this field. A lot of wide circuit then to go and deal with. It's a case that these cars do have a very small profile on this track, and so you can get your 2 wides, your 3 wides that come along here that you maybe don't get to do so at other circuits around the season.
Absolutely, and that turn 6-7 complex there after coming down the hill, there was nonstop action in there. I covered the public server race here on RaceSpot Friday 2100 GMT, and actually a race deciding passes can happen right there late. So you may not be accustomed to see a lot of side-by-side, but we're certainly going to see a lot of combat there going into turn 6.
But it's pleasantries at the front of this field right now. Everyone's saying, hey, how are you? How are you doing? Effectively handing out their virtual business cards to people if they do that, or say exactly what they want. Here's my social page. Go follow me, or something of that ilk. So it's very much a case of everyone's nice at the moment. We haven't seen anybody really stamp out and say, this is what I'm about. But they've got that in the second half of the race, and that's where the strategy comes into play. How you work. Top 3, a second clear of Rudolf Nagel, who's really going to have to work here in the SimRC car to keep within drafting range. This is such a draft dependent track.
Nagel is in some real jeopardy here. That gap right now, 0.9. If it gets much more than a minute, those top 3 are going to drive off, and Nagel is going to be leading his own train with Larson and Barry behind. So he really wants to close that down. But the Lips and Sorensen are making good pace. They're not fighting. They're nose to tail, and their goal is to pull their train away from Nagel. And so far, so good. There it is, 1 second. So Nagel in trouble here already early as the 2 Lips and Sorensen make a break for it.
Yeah, this is a case of run off into the Styrian Mountains right now and make sure that you can jump on forward and do what you can to give yourself as much of a platform. You can find yourself a way back up towards the front if you take maybe a short fill at your first stop, so it's not completely out of the realms, but the moment you take that short fill, gain the track position back, you're going to have to rely on trying to hold on. But if you're losing that draft after just 3 laps worth of racing here, 5 minutes worth of run, how much can you really start to find in terms of place up the hill? No looks from the top 3, a little look back in 7th and 8th though, because that is Pablo Serrano losing the spot in the background there, and Horvath Gullikson is the one who's making all the moves at the moment, but Serrano's coming back.
And you might wonder why Serrano is bothering to fight these pro drivers. As you see Benson take a little peek. Oh! And maybe overslowed a little bit there on that entry to turn 3. And that is not the first crash we're going to see there. And there's Serrano. He turns it. And my goodness, Camera Shy and the commentators curse there are knocking Serrano way down. And Luke Crowley has got to love seeing that. And speaking of Luke, he has managed to drop Craig, his rival for the title, by about a second and a half with a couple pros in between. So things looking good for Luke Crowley right now.
I think it was a case of Serrano fighting hard there with the likes there of Franek Sikorsky, tried to fight really hard for it and look for a way through. And as he was trying to get back up to speed again, he looped it around, and there you can see the front popping off for just a half a second. And for Pablo Serrano, that is tough. Stefan Mellis saw the incident and decided, you know what, I'm going to grab the gravel in sympathy and go with.
Oh, that hurts. And it's not over for Serrano. Of course, he definitely has pace. He can pull in right now for his first fuel stop and take that faster pair. They do have one on tap. But what I was going to say, Jake, is you might wonder why an AM would fight a pro, and that's because they're all fighting for the same pool of points. So if you finish in front of the guy in front of you, that's more points for you, whether they are pro or AM. So you may see some more fighting between the different classes today.
Yeah, and the amount of gap that was there as well, which was very key to Pablo Serrano, was that being up 7th, 8th fighting when Luke Crowley was down in 16th position, now up to 14th, that would have been huge. That would have been a massive amounts of points that you could have started to eat back into. But that spin puts Crowley, the championship leader in AM, in a fantastic position. And look at that, 4 places ahead of the nearest AM challenger, which was your winner last time out, Louis Gregg. So I would say say. This is a wonderful bit of placement here from Luke Crowley. Just go and roll with the punches and try and build that margin.
Crowley needs to take a breath right here, tuck in behind somebody, save some fuel, and just tick off the laps right now. This race has completely come to him. And I see Barry dropping. Something happened to James Barry as he's plummeting down the standings right now. And we'll try to find out what happened with him. You see him off pace right there coming down the pit straight. So Barry with some kind of problem.
Yeah, he's run up the back of Kettle Larson, and the car's got loose because he was so close in behind the Radical in front, and James Barry ultimately pays the price for it at the final corner. So that will be a case of James having a lot to do and saying that he'd have been happy where he was, but would love to have challenged up top. He just gets a little too close, the back steps out, and ultimately that lack of grip going across the front of the car is enough to unsettle.
Is brutal for Barry, and we're going to see him jump in the pits right now. He lost 13 positions there. He doesn't want to make all those passes on track, so get in, fuel up, and get some clean laps in, and try to undercut some of these slower drivers in front. His only option right now.
Yeah, he's left with a decision of having to go to a very, very long second stint then in this one, having pitted early then for fuel and tyres. So we'll now be looking to try and recover later on in this race and gain as many places on the recovery drive as possible. Kettle Larson through on Rudolf Nagel. That will move another one of the IGL Coatings cars then up another place. That will put them up into third and fourth in this one. But Larson has 1.8 to try and chase down to the two lips, Christoph and Sebastian, and his teammate Lasse Sorensen, who is there and is just holding that station. It's then a group of 5 that follows, which is tailed by the Nix Esports car of Oscar Soltero, who is there in that position number 8, up 3 spots along with Franek Sikorsky, both having quiet races right now, but quiet will do so much. They're still very much in the hunt for this victory at what will be the 1/6 distance of this race.
What you're seeing right there, Jake, is wisdom and racecraft. You don't need to be flogging these radicals around this track for 60 minutes. We cannot take tires in this series. I mean, theoretically you could, but they go on separately from fuel, and putting tires on is a race ender. So these drivers up front, they're not fighting. They're taking it easy. This track very hard on front tires. And just as I say that, here's a little move happening right now as we watch so not sure who we're looking at right there, but Soltero moving past Sikorsky. And Sikorsky, remember, started this season as an AM, came out of the gates on fire, and they moved him up into pro, and he has frankly struggled since then. So Sikorsky would really like to hang on to this top 10 and make something happen in this race after struggling in rounds 2 through 4.
Oh, now this is interesting here because Horvath Gullikson is your first taker, really in the pits with the exception of James Barry, made the call to say, I'm coming in. And it's a very late commitment cone here. You've got to be very careful about it, and you are really traveling third gear as you hit the line and jump on in, and you're going up very aggressively. James Barry is also going to jump into the pits then and make that call. So 2 drivers in. I'm keeping an eye as well on what's going on 10th and 11th, because Luke Crowley has decided he wants to play games and he wants to fight. He's got Jorge Gonzaga he wants to get through. Ewan Bremer and Kim Andre Bjorkland there behind. Louis Gregg watching all the scrapping going on.
Yeah, and looks like the gap between Crowley and Craig right now is about 3 seconds. Oh my goodness. And we see some side-by-side action into turn 3. It is not advisable, but doable, as you saw them surviving that. Gonzaga, though, not happy about that. He's going to show his nose on the inside down here into turn 4. Oh my goodness, and put a credit card in between those 2 cars and it would stay there. That was awful close.
Well, I tell you what, it wouldn't have very much money in the bank account there. That was how thin the credit card was going on in through at Grath Corner. Sorry, not Grath Corner, Rauch Corner. Now into Grath Corner. They head along here. Turn number 7 on circuit. And turn 8 here is just a transfer corner in these cars. You can go flat out through there so long as you don't grab the gravel on the inside. So there is still focus to be had. There are still places to be gained. But at least for the moment, Luke Crowley will be looking at those points and going, yeah, this is exactly what I want. Get aggressive, battle in a pack. But they have lost the next group of Kyriakopoulos, of Gestrombakken, and of Sally Raitanen. They would love to try and work together. You need a bit of cooperation if you want to work through the gap to get to the next cars in front.
And Crowley, yeah, an interesting choice, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to him after this one if he ends up on the podium and joins us in the commentary booth. But Crowley fighting right there when he's so far ahead, and there he goes. And Crowley is turned after a tussle with Gonzaga. Looks like George was waiting for him there, maybe taking responsibility for that. But just as I'm saying, why are you rolling the dice right now? Why are you fighting? And there are the consequences. And Greg and DeGraff, 2AMs, are both through on Crowley when he was really sitting in the catbird seat.
So this is really interesting because Gonzaga pulls alongside initially just as they hit the braking zone. Crowley's later on the brakes, and then Gonzaga just eases into the brakes a little later, so it's a little bit more consistent with that, and just completely runs into the back there of Crowley, who's a little bit more stabby on the brakes and loses the speed a little bit later on, a lot more aggressively. So Crowley there, just not enough room between them. Gonzaga, of course, decided to not gain a lasting advantage as to avoid any penalty for the incident. But Luke Crowley will really not be happy that Mena de Graaf and Louis Gregg have jumped ahead, and that will be points lost in the championship should it stay like that. Dennis Kiriakopoulos into the pits.
Crowley's got to be steaming right now, and that's one of those corners, Jake, I was talking about initially. It's really easy to overslow for some of these corners at Red Bull Ring. Turn 1 being one, turn 3, where that incident occurred, being one, and turn 10 as well. Got to be super precise, disciplined on the brakes, and carry as much speed across the apex as you can. And you saw Gonzaga doing a little better than Crowley there, and that's why they came together, as you observed.
Yep, so 14.8 seconds in the box for Dennis Kiriakopoulos, who's able to continue on. This is Sally Reitinen here, the Radical Privateers, against the IGL Coatings and Sander Traffic Scholar performance car of Mats Gjestrembakken, who is now trying to get the number 90 Radical moving on forward. It's all about fuel, as was said. Those tyres durable as anything right now as they go through. You could say they're 4 boulders on each tyre. Front left, front right, rear left, rear right that they have to go through. And ultimately, by the time that they get down to the end of this race, they've got 4 very lovely, shiny, I would say, marbles that they've got to go and work with to drive through. They know how important it is to keep themselves in an operating range. There is still wear to deal with, but it's at the end of the hour you start getting the problems, not immediately, as Gjestrembakken follows Reitinen in for the pits.
And the pit stops piling up, and look at that list of names: Gullikson, Berry, Karakopoulos, Friedrich, Serrano. Some of our very fast drivers ducking in early. I told you it was 11 laps worth of fuel that they hit the grid with. So many of them making strategic calls here to get through traffic, to try the undercut, and it'll certainly be interesting to see how that unfolds. A couple more coming in too. So the floodgates are open now, 15 minutes in.
So James Barry is 4 seconds behind Horvath Gullikson out there. Has just come out ahead of Dennis Kiriakopoulos. So I'd put James Barry about 7th, 8th place there or thereabouts. This is where I'd expect it to come out with Mats Gjestrembakken, who took a 13.3 second stop. It was a bit longer for Reitinen, and he took 4 extra seconds in the lane, and that's going to cost him those 2 places. But when you got to get on the speed down through the Munster corner here, the money corner, you can now get yourself into slipstream. So James Barry now can work here with Mats Gjestrembakken and keep himself in play. Speaking of in play, Soltero and Sikorsky, well, it's fight night round 2, it seems, right now here on this Sunday.
Sikorsky all over the back of Soltero. You watch that gap there, 0.2, and keep an eye on our timing tower when they get on that front straightaway. We talk about it every week. The
everyone in.
Effect, huge. Oh, and yeah, the parade into the pits continuing. But yeah, that slipstream effect, huge. You can see those intervals dropping when they come down that pit straight and they close on each other heading into turn 1.
Rudolf Nagel nearly spun the car, actually, coming into pit lane. He nearly missed it altogether. But now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the rest, 8 and 9 cars deciding to jump on in. Bjorklund in, Bremer in, and everyone's saying, well, 11 laps, that was nice and easy for us. We were able to go on through. Now it's about who can say they've got the best stop. 10.2 seconds, so some short stops coming in from the Litt brothers, and they've taken 5 seconds less than Kettle Larsen, for example, and look at the way they've jumped. Sorensen and Larsen are going to have to work together. This is a clever strategy. It just means that the Litt brothers will have a very long final stint to this race.
very interesting choice there, and it's very possible, of course, that they're working together, that they're going to trade back and forth and try to help each other save fuel. But yeah, that was a very, very short stop. The total fuel load needed on this race is about 60 liters, so that's a 30 liter split.
Oh, Nagel's got unsafe pit entry.
Oh, yeah. And a black flag by Nagel.
Yeah, so that would have been an unsafe pit entry the way he would have attacked going in, because he was over the line, and that's why his pit stop took way longer than everyone else. He's out behind Guy Robertson, and after what was a great qualifying for Rudolph up on the second row of the grid, now pretty much at the back of the field.
Yeah, disaster. The pit entry so tough here at Red Bull Ring. You're coming around turn 9 fast, and you have to commit to an inside line. You got to commit early. I don't know if he decided to later, just didn't practice that pit entry, but you are hauling the mail in that pit entry, and you have to practice it. You have to do it carefully, and Nagel caught out there, and any meaningful result for him is over.
Right, let's take some stock then after the first round of pit stops. Christoph Lipp leads his teammate and brother Sebastian Lipp in second. Lasse Sorensen, Lasse is in third position. Then it's Kettle Larsen in fourth. Franek Sikorsky has gained up into fifth position, being trailed by Horvath Gullikson in sixth. And James Barry has recovered to seventh, leading Dennis Kiriakopoulos and Mats Geström back in eighth and ninth. Sally Raitanen is the last car in the top 10. Louis Gregg leading AM category in 15th, 2 places over Luke Crowley.
Yeah, and you got to think that Crowley, I would like to be in his helmet right now, having that error, but he has closed down that gap a little. He's got about 2.5 seconds ahead to Craig, and plenty of time left, 40 more minutes remaining. He can work his way closer, and I know he wants to get within fighting distance of Craig. They've had some great battles so far this year, and I know that Crowley wants to engage in another one before this one's over.
Yeah, but he's having to defend right now because Gabriel Berger has just gone by. Crowley will look to try and attack back down the hill. This into Rauch Corner, turn number 4, named Rauch Corner because of, well, the company there, Rauch, which you can find on pretty much every single Austrian bib, which is out there when you're watching the alpine skiing. It's always there, and you always see it out there as you go. But wonderful work then to try and defend that place. Gabriel Berger now happy with where he is in the number 25 car. That's now 17th.
Rauch Corner is a tough one downhill. Are you going to rotate the car, trail brake down a difficult camber corner, and very tough. See a lot of spins there. None here so far, but to make a move there, especially under braking, you got to be very brave indeed.
Well, speaking of brave, we talked about this, 5 seconds less in the stop, but look at the gap. 10 seconds to the 2 Lips and the likes of Lasse Sorensen. Sorensen did a 26 flat on that last lap. Compare that to the Lip brothers, who did 25 fours and 25 fives. Pace is not there at the moment. Geström backer now, trying to go around the outside of Kiriakopoulos, and ultimately, Dennis holds.
Yeah, pretty good work there. I thought we might see a little switchback by Geström in there, but sometimes you get a little better drive out of the outside of turn 3 there because the uphill is a little less severe on the outside of the track, and you saw that work for Kiriakopoulos there, and just temporarily, because he goes wide coming out of that difficult Rauch corner and loses that position. Tough luck for Denis.
He might lose a second here because here comes Sally Raitanen. He's got the inside of 5. They make a tiny bit of contact side to side, and Raitanen's gone deep here through the corner. Can he gather it back up over the anti-cuts? Yes, he can. So Raitanen has got that +2, but left, right, where do you want to go? Dennis Kiriakopoulos moving over to the outside of Jochen Rindt to try and get this pass made, and ultimately will have to go around the outside of turn 10 to get it done, and that is a 10 from Kiriakopoulos to hold that place. But now bringing Oscar Soltero to the mix, and we got fire. Here comes once again the chance to make the move. Soltero watches Raitanen down the inside, and again around the outside the hold by Kiriakopoulos.
Somehow no contact there, and what a move around the outside of 9 and 10. If you watched our Friday broadcast, that was the move for the win by Christoph Lipp on the last lap. So tough to make it happen. You'd have so much car control and so much committal, but man, oh man, Kiriakopoulos got it done there. That was awesome.
Speaking of awesome there, that was a fantastic bit of work to go and get those moves done. And you have to be sometimes quite reactive in cars like these in order to give yourself the platform to go out there and attack and gain an extra place or two out there. But you can't afford to sacrifice losing contact with groups. And you still got the 2 that lead and the 3 that follow. Sorensen, Larson and Sikorsky giving the follow at the moment in 3rd, 4th and 5th places. And there they are on screen. Lasse Sorensen, who of course is now looking to try and really attack here into this second half of the season with Kjetil Larsen, who is there. Frank Sikorsky looking close. The battle for 3rd on the top of your screen. Over on the bottom is the race on for 9th.
That's Kyriakopoulos from Reitinen from Saltero there on the bottom of the screen. And Denis got to be feeling good about that move and has managed to keep Saltero or keep Reitinen off of him for a whole additional lap. So we'll see if Reitinen wants to just settle in here, take a breath and save some fuel. But man, that is the move of the race so far by Denis. That was incredible.
Yeah, it was a wonderful pass, and that has sorted itself out quite nicely. A little gesture over from Kjetil Larsen to the inside to say, I might want to try and get through, but here, more than most places that you find on the season as they continue on, and it will be again Kyriakopoulos defending, Sauli Reitinen trying to go around the outside, not quite finding it. Here, more than most places, great place to save fuel.
And you got to wonder too, Sorensen, Larson, and Sikorsky. I might want to settle in and save a little bit of fuel if I were them, but easy for me to say. If you are Larson and Sikorsky, maybe you think Sorensen is holding you up and you've got a chance at reeling in those lips. But look at that gap now, 10 seconds, and it seems to extend a half a second or so on every lap as those 2 lips drive away.
Yeah, Franek Sikorsky through, and the Polish driver, you can see with the Polish flag there on the front of the car, and the Polish eagle that is ever so synonymous there, through at turn 6, getting that pass done. Franek Sikorsky then moving up to the 4th, splitting up the RGL Coatings cars, and looking at Lasse Sorensen and saying, well, if you're not going to go quick enough, I'm going to try and push the pace. Stone-faced Franek then sits there and watches ever the consummate driver. Right now, nothing seems to be out of control. It's as if it's a normal day, staring daggers into the rear wing there right now of Lasse Sorensen, hoping that he just moves kindly out the way. He won't do that, but he needs to drive off the exit. Little bit of a wiggle there coming through out of the corner there of turn 3.
Yeah, roasting those tires up that hill at turn 3, so tough. And Sikorsky, as I mentioned, started the season very hot, has run into some bad luck, and he is probably due. I'm sure he feels he's due. And yeah, he is super frosty right now. 35 minutes remaining, and he has got to like his chances of getting a podium out of this one, Jake.
Yeah, I'd say he's got a 1 in 3 at the moment of making that podium, a 33% chance. They've got 2 seconds over Gullikson. James Barry back there as well is working really hard to try and stay with Gullikson here for what is 6th and 7th positions. James Barry's done really well to keep himself in this field and keep himself honest and alive, so to speak, to score points. And every point's going to matter between now and the end of the season, and that's what's quite critical. When you've got a field where 6 or 7 drivers any given day can win the top field category, you need to be at your best every race.
And Barry, I've been watching that gap. He has lit the wick here. He almost has it down to a second. So slowly but surely bringing in Gullikson. And if he can get just a little bit closer, get that toe on the front straight, he's going to be in position to move up. And if he does that, Kjetil Larsen is right down the road. So Sikorsky, Barry within striking distance of the podium right now.
Yeah, very much is, as they remain close once again. Something's happened to Guy Robertson. He was a little bit irate on the radio as we watch the battle down in the bottom for what is, again, 9th position. And Kyriakopoulos still holding himself steady in the number 34 car, representing Switzerland out there with his iRacing flag. New system in now with iRacing, the flag system replacing all of the basic club systems that used to be run. But Reitinen then and Saltero continuing to remain close out there and thinking, right, where do we want to go to make our moves? And speaking of moves, Franek Sikorsky up to the podium, got that done, and that was at turn 4, route corner again, down the hill braking zone, 1 line only to play with, and Lasse Sorensen wasn't making that one very difficult at all.
So tough right there. I cannot emphasize it enough. Charging down that hill after heating the rear tires coming up out of turn 3 to trail brake successfully through that corner, not run wide. We saw somebody in the kitty litter there earlier in the race. So great job by Sikorsky, and we'll keep an eye on that gap back to Sorensen right now, already half a second. And if that expands, we could have Sikorsky enjoying a track day here at Red Bull Ring the rest of the way, depending on pit strategy.
Yeah, this is a very interesting circuit, and one of the big reasons why here, JR, I want to get your opinion on this. You are never truly going straight on a straight.
Yeah, that is too right. And another thing I think worth mentioning at this track is track limits, and anybody who's watched F1 here has seen those black and white striped flags waved on almost every lap. And just like the pros, track limits can reach up and bite people here. There are penalties for incidents involved in this league. I think they get 25, so it is conceivable to rack up 25 in an hour here quite easily. It's easy to get one per lap, really, so something else to keep in mind. And going to the next level at Red Bull Ring is about driving right on those track limits, but not over.
AM category has closed in. Louis Gregg will look behind at Gabriel Berger, who's looking for a way through. Jorge Gonzaga just behind. In front, a 3-car scrap. Kim-Andre Bjorklund, Ewan Bremer, and leading that group, just making the pass there we saw on camera in towards turn 4 at Rauch Corner. That is Andreas Friedrich, who's leading this group in 13th.
Yeah, and these cars do tend to train up a little bit, and we're seeing a couple of trains. Aside from the lips are in a 2-man train, but we've got one from 3rd to 5th. We got another one from 6th back to about 9th or 10th at this point. So the slipstream effect kind of sucking these cars together can make up for small mistakes in the infield. If you're within that 1 second, like I said, you'll get sucked right up on back of the car in front. And here's a look at Ewan Bremer taking a look at Bjorklund heading up the hill into turn 3.
Yeah, you go down the hill, it plateaus. It's an uphill braking zone, which means you can brake a lot later than you normally can for corners like these. At turn 3, getting the run. Now you got to sort out where you go, because you go from uphill braking zone to downhill braking zone as you go over the top of the hill. What used to be the Österreich ring of this circuit has really given a lot of the old feel of that old circuit back in a new light. Little look down the inside on Louis Gregg. There for Gabriel Berger. Not quite close enough to make that happen, but showing intent that he wants the AM lead on the winner of last time's AM category.
Showing his nose there, and you know that Greg is going to be looking in his rearview mirror when they get back on that straight, and we'll see how Greg is able to defend after that slipstream gives Berger a nice tow, gives him a 20 or 30 kph speed advantage down that front straight. Really significant in these cars.
Oh, it is truly significant, and we have seen the true significance of where you find that opportunities to go and make those places and to maybe even save a little bit out there. I'm keeping my eye as well on Horvath Gulliksen. He's only 1.5 seconds off the back of Kettle Larson, but James Barry's worked his way through, and if James Barry flies on by here, they can join and make this a 5-car train for one final spot on the podium.
Yeah, Barry really doing a fantastic recovery drive here. Has completely reeled in Gulliksen. That was a 3-second gap when they left the pits. And Barry, as you can see right there, he is all over Gulliksen like the plastic on Grandma's couch. And here comes that front straight. So we'll see what happens. But by the time we get to the end of that straight and into turn 1.
Well, if you can find the move, if you can find the opportunity, then it will very much present itself. James Barry will know that. Horvath Gulliksen is going to put himself right place, right time, and might be thinking about these two drivers, again, making the earlier call to make the stop. So they might be looking at this going, well, we went in early the first time. Will early again give us the position that we want? Over halfway, you can make one more stop and get clear to the end of the race. But the key right now is look at that gap at the front and how it skyrockets. And speaking of skyrocket, on cue, James Barry has hit the pits, and with half an hour to go, it's one long stop to the end.
Wow, interesting. So Barry deciding to go for the undercut again. It certainly served him well on the first pit stop. Instead of fighting with Gullickson, he wants to pass him by getting clear air after a pit stop. And very interesting strategy. Barry, I call him the little professor. He is a thinker, and he knows how to stay chill under pressure and make the right decision. So I'm liking his chances for that to work out, and he really could be within striking distance of Sikorsky up there in P3. And if he does that, it will be the recovery drive of the season.
16.3 seconds then in the stop, 33.8 in the lane. He'll come out behind Ole Gunnar Stensrud in the 178 machine, and that will be 21st position. Lucky for some out there is number 21 out there. It's a game of blackjack if you win on that, but at least right now there is James Barry, who is currently on circuit and really is going to have to dig in deep. The good news he's going to have is he'll get a bit of slipstream from the AM cars in front. The bad news is you've got to pass them.
Yeah, he does have to pass them. Looking at the gaps right now, about a second and a half forward to Stensrud. Once he dispenses with that driver, he'll have about 5 seconds of clean air up to Serrano. So if he's able to put down some heaters with clean air, he has put himself in good position to do that.
Well, keep an eye on the stop time here for the Lipp brothers. This is going to be everything you need to know about how long they're going to go. Christoph Lipp will come off the jacks first compared to Sebastian Lipp. He was much more aggressive in there. 16.5 seconds for each of them as Christoph Lipp leaves the pits ahead of Sebastian as they had run the entirety of that second stint. And they're going to come out right in a gaggle here. And this is going to get interesting. Kim-Andre Bjorklund, Andreas Friedrich there, Ewan Bremer, and also Louis Gregg and Gabriel Berger. That would not have been in the strategy to come out right in the middle of a battle like this.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a mess that they've come out in front of, and I can tell you that Friedrich, Soltero, Kyriakopoulos, nobody in front of them is going to give them a free pass to get through here. So they have got some work cut out for them, and we might be seeing their pit strategy fall apart right here.
Well, at the moment, they're having to defend rather than attack. You'd expect with the way that they've been driving at the front of the field, they'd have to be aggro to get by. So they're going to have to settle in here. 25 sixes from Andreas Friedrich. And I'll be surprised here. They're running the same pace as the group behind. So I don't think they're actually in too much trouble.
Yeah, man, fascinating. I love that they have added pit stops to these races. Last season, they did a heat and a kind of sprint race. This format just adds so much strategy. Fascinating to watch, fascinating to think about, and talk to the drivers about after the race, how they work this out. And we'll keep an eye on those lap times for the Lipp brothers. Did they do themselves a disservice coming out in arguably slower traffic, and did that blow up their pit strategy? And we'll keep an eye on that and let you know.
Franek Sikorsky leading this field, but knowing that they lost 13 seconds over the course of the first two stints. Wiggle off the exit, though. This is going to invite Lasse Sorensen into position, who will have to go to the outside to try and find this move. Where are you going to go? Middle of the road right now from Sikorsky to try and defend, and almost tried to cover off the line a bit late there. That was much a case of Lasse Sorensen having to back out there. Franek Sikorsky has got to be careful about how much he moves under brakes.
Yeah, he definitely does, and there is no live stewarding here today, but there are stewards' reviews, and it sure looked like Sikorsky was responding to Sorensen's move there, and yeah, he does have to be careful. They're not shy about handing out penalties for that kind of thing, and I gotta say, Jake, Sikorsky is not doing those rear tires any favors. We've seen a couple of onboards with him coming out of turn 3, fighting that oversteer and lighting up those rears, and with 25 minutes left, you got to be a little bit kinder to that rubber if you want it to be kind to you down the stretch.
Here's the question. Do you want the group to stay together, or do you want it to splint apart? I would look around and say, first person to pit in, I'd want Horvath Gullickson to claw up to the back here of Kjetil Larsen and say, I'm going to dive in. Then the next lap, I'd throw Kjetil Larsen in. Then the next lap after that, I would say it's time for Lasse Sorensen to make a pit stop. This is the group right now, which houses Bjorklund and Friedrich and Lipp and Bremer, and Gonzaga is dropping off the back of this one. Still a 5-car group. But key here is that Christoph Lipp, doing 126s, isn't really finding a way to go through. In comes Louis Gregg from the AM lead.
And we said we'd keep an eye on those lap times, and both lips are, Christoph has done about a 126 flat. Sebastian behind, also about a 126 flat. That's at least a half second off their previous race pace. So we are seeing them get slowed up by traffic. And right now they're just praying for the people in front of them to go in for their second stop. And so far those prayers have not been answered as they sit in 9th and 11th respectively.
Well, right now, Andreas Friedrich needs to get the memo here for Sebastian Lipp, because these two, the two Lipp brothers, have got to stay together. They're a full pit stop ahead of Andreas Friedrich, and Friedrich cannot afford to make it happen. That's a late call into the pits by Franek Sikorsky, who decides he's going to depart off the race lead. Now, that would have affected Lasse Sorensen through the corner here, and it would have been a very, very late decision to come off of the racing line and make that dive on in. We'll see how long the stop is and traveling through the lane. Where in comparison are those drives? Well, they're already going through on the final stretch here. 3, 4, 5. Keep counting. No point. Keep counting. They're gone. They're miles gone.
They really are. And Sikorsky plummeting all the way down to 14th after his second pit stop. Now,
this is long.
Yeah, oh my gosh. You know, he
unsafe
had a pit
entry
before. Oh, and another unsafe entry. And man, you called it, Jake. You take a reckless late decision entry into that very difficult pit lane, and another fast racer's race is ended by the treacherous pit entry at Red Bull Ring. That is unbelievable. And Sikorsky's bad luck streak continues.
Yeah, and there's the driver who had the first one, Rudolf Nagel. So Franek Sikorsky is going to have a friend of sympathy and say, you too, buddy? First time? Yeah, first time. And that really does hurt. But now you got three together of the IGL cars right now. Gulliksen and Sorensen, and Kettle Larsen has moved to the net race lead. 22nd now for Franek Sikorsky. You must get in before the line. And Horvath Gulliksen made a very late call to jump in as he bit the bullet potentially. Keep an eye on his stop time.
And just looking at that stop time, Sikorsky spent 1:12 in pit lane that time, and compared that to folks around him, they're in the around 30 seconds, depending on how much fuel they had to take on. So another race-ending penalty, and really kind of shocked to see that in the pro category here.
Yeah, it does happen, though, when you're trying to push the limits as best as you can. Gulliksen off and away, 11.7 seconds, but it's going to be a mile back on the group here, and that's going to be a lot of work because the Lipp brothers have now moved to the front of that group ahead of Ewan Bremer, and now are starting to really turn cadence at the front of that. I think it might be a race against those two. Gjestrom Backham, a 13.9 second pit stop as well, down in the lane, also dived on in. He'll come out with James Barry for company, as those two have been together for a lot of this race. Christoph Lipp, 5th position, just 4 cars to pit in front of him. But will Sebastian decide he doesn't want to play, I would say, the brother who loses out at the moment? I don't know which one's older or which one's younger, but the one thing you don't ever want to do is lose to your brother.
And, you know, I'm having second thoughts about my naysaying that pit strategy. Jake, look at that interval. Christoph Lipp now sitting about 15 seconds back of Larson in P1, and the pit lane time is 30 plus. So by the time Larson, Sorensen, Karakopoulos, and Soltero pull out, the Lipps are going to be gone and have a similar interval to what they had before. So they have got this one in the bag. They need to keep it chill, keep it on the track. But their little strategy of pitting early and driving away together is going to bear fruit here at the Red Bull Ring.
Well, it's everyone else who's got to react to that, and no one did, and that's the key. They had a strategy no one else had, and Christoph Lipp and Sebastian Lipp are clear. James Barry would have had the same strategy, but he'd have been so far down the order that it's only just got him into position, as the likes of Gonzaga is down there in the pits there. The likes of Andreas Friedrich has decided to jump off the group and into the pits too. So it just leaves those drivers then into play, and a black flag then for Pablo Serrano. That will be speeding on the lane.
Oh my goodness, and the penalties just racking up, true to form in real life Red Bull Ring. And speaking of James Barry, we saw him take an early pit, and my thinking was he was trying to undercut Gulliksen ahead, and that has failed spectacularly. A 5-second gap now from Barry up to Gulliksen. So Barry kind of struggling right now in P11. However, that could be a P4 by the time these pit sequence ends. So Barry's still looking good on his recovery drive.
I will correct myself. Pablo Serrano most likely would have picked that up for 15 incident points here. Remember, it's disqualification at 25. He's got 10 for the final 20 minutes. That's one every 2 minutes, or roughly, he's got an incident for every 1.5 laps that he tries to do. Car coming out of the pits then, in front of your leaders. That is Andreas Friedrich, who's had a long stop and is going to be almost a lap down now, so that's really going to hurt. Luke Crowley, look at this, with Eric Benson just behind, 8th and 9th. Remember Eric Benson and how he's been doing, 7 seconds back at Crowley. Remember, he was turned around at the start of this race and he's found himself up 11.
And Benson, one of the quicker drivers here, and showing that consistency matters. Benson has 1 race win under his belt and 2 podiums in 5 appearances. So he knows how to be consistent and how to keep it chill. And here's a little move on the inside of Crowley there, or I'm looking at the wrong place. That is Gullickson on Benson. Yeah, Benson putting on a good show here. And it just goes to show you with these mixed strategy pit stops, you don't really get a clear picture of what's going on until the second pit sequence is completed. That's the area that we're headed into right now.
JR, his name may be Horvath, but that was a very educated overtake, as into the pits now comes the likes of Kettle Larson.
Oh my goodness, and I love hearing puns like that. All we need is ivy-colored hills here in the Styrian Mountains of Austria. But still waiting now. It's still Sorensen from Larson from Soltero up front. And the gap from Lip up to P1 is still sitting about 15 seconds, but I'm going to stand by my prediction that they're going to be well clear when those front drivers go into the pits. And there goes Larson into the pits, leaving only Sorensen and Soltero not having stopped in the top group of drivers.
11.5 for Kettle Larson. Walker through, Crowley through, Bjorklund's through, Bremmer's through, the Lips are through, but net third it is. He'll come out with Horvath, Gullickson and Eric Benson, so he's managed to just about stay ahead, but Gullickson now brings himself into play. They've got to try and get the clearance here on the lap down. Stefan Mellis, who really should stay out of the way of these drivers and move very deep on the brakes. He does so and has got his clearance, but look at the 2 Lip brothers. They are going to be so happy with the strategy they've come up to in this race, and they'll have such a gap that they'll have themselves about 10 minutes to figure out who should win.
Yeah, and nobody's tiptoeing through these 2 Lips today. They are stomping through the field, and they are going to have P1 and P2 by a double-digit kind of gaudy interval up front. And a little surprising, you know, their pace, Jake, isn't that different from the other front runners. It's just how they played the pit sequence, and you see the result here, kids. And pro tip: analyze your pit strategy because you can really make significant things happen, as you've seen these 2 drivers do today.
Let's say Sorensen then into the pits and needs a very aggressive stop here to get anywhere close. This might just be a race for third out there for Lesse as he goes through 6 seconds, 7 seconds. They're already gone through turn 1, so kiss them goodbye. 10.2 in the stop and looking to get off and away. It's one of the fastest pit lanes of the season, but up to speed through turn 1. Lesse Sorensen has got the last spot on the podium sewn up. Still waiting for Oscar Soltero, who'll take a lap lead, and Ewan Bremer to make the stops.
Yeah, and not quite double digits, but close. It's going to be Sorensen in P3, about 7 or 8 seconds back of Sebastian Lip when Soltero and Bremer do their pit stop. So, and with 15 minutes remaining, Soltero and Bremer are going to be running on fumes here, and we're going to see them come in the very near future. And again, a tip of the hat to those Lip brothers. They did something different, and doing something different makes stuff happen, folks.
Well, let's talk Am for the moment, because Luke Crowley's come out a mile back of Louis Gregg, who's made his 2 stops and done brilliantly. There's Christoph Lipp on screen right now in second position right now. Sebastian, his brother, behind in third. But Louis Gregg's got the category lead. Menno de Graaf is in second, but Menno needs to stop.
Yeah, and interesting about Craig and Crowley. You're right. Craig has dropped Crowley to the tune of about 5 seconds. So those two rivals, I kind of expected to see a fight from them today. They were lined up next to each other on the grid, but you saw Crowley getting a little tussle there and turn 3, and that ended that and kind of handed this one to Craig. So, and we've seen Craig. We saw him at Bathurst just put in a workman-like drive, nothing flashy, nothing fancy, but steady, and it's going to get it done for Craig again today.
Your drivers second and third, 4 seconds off the back of Oscar Soltero, who needs to stop. Guy Robertson in the pits, and that's a long pit stop for Guy as he's gone in on play. But now look at this, Sebastian Lipp for the first time decides he wants to open up and wants to get a move. No, decides against it there. So that was interesting from Sebastian Lipp, feigning over to the inside. And I was looking around at it, and I think he just decided, you know what, it's better for me if I fall back into line. I don't need to make this move and risk it right now.
Yeah, that's a little wink and a nod between the brothers. Sebastian said, Christoph, you got a bad exit at turn 3. I could have done something here, and I just want to let you know that before I tuck back behind.
Yeah, there's still time to play with, and they're not going to rest on their laurels until they know they've got a gap, and they've got a gap right now of roughly, I would say, 9 to 10 seconds at this moment over Lasse Sorensen and Kettle Larsen and Horvath Gulliksen. It's not infinite, the gap, but it's finite enough that they can go and say, right, we've got space to work with. Soltero staying out yet again. It is a mandatory 2 stops here today. You do have to make those 2. He can wait as long as he likes to make it, including the last lap, I do believe.
Yeah, he absolutely could. And on this track, you could probably make it on the last lap and still comply with the rules, depending on where your pit stall is. And a black flag for Gabriel Berger. And I'm telling you, folks, this track is a trap for incidents. I've been out here and gotten 1 incident per lap. And I'm not Michael, Rolf, or even Willie Schumacher.
I don't think it's Berger. I think it's De Graaf.
Oh, is that
Sorry, I think it's Mena De Graaf who's got the penalty.
Okay. Yeah, but anyway, it's a super tough track to avoid those incident points.
Yeah, so it is Mena De Graaf. You can see he's not hit a single box there. He's still got to make his mandatory stop because that one will not count for a pit stop, so he's got to come back in again. And I would say if he's coming for that black flag penalty, he should go straight out and straight back in and serve his final stop.
Yeah, he probably should. Nothing to fight for at this point for De Graaf. That dropped him all the way down to P18. He's got kind of a short gap ahead and a pretty big gap behind, but that's probably going to let Sikorsky, another penalized driver, back through as we take a look at this train that has swarmed. That's Sorensen from Larson from Gulliksen, and still some action there as those drivers are going to fight over P5. James Berry now 4 seconds adrift of Gulliksen.
Yeah, Horvath Gulliksen's done well. In comes Ewan Bremer then from 4th position. That will promote up these drivers to 4th, 5th and 6th now in terms of where they place, and they will be actually quite happy about the way that they've been going about this, and they'll say, right, okay, well, 3 of us, 1 spot on the podium. At this point, when you're 3 teammates, you're fighting for 1 spot on the podium, what do? Do you draw straws? Do you play rock, paper, scissors? What do you do?
I'm guessing that they probably look at the season points, who's highest in the season points. I'm sure they're on comms together and they've reached an agreement. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of fighting. There may be some team orders in effect with IGL coatings. And my goodness, we are on an F1 track here, Jake. And doesn't this look like an F1 race with these teams driving nose to tail? And the well-organized teams are absolutely dominating the front of this one. P1 and P2 in those matching liveries, and P3, 4, and 5. And just a super pro outing by everybody in the top 5.
Yeah, and so finding what they need is going to be quite critical late on in this race. You've got also Giestrom Backham versus Barry, which is also going on, and this one on for 9th because Dennis Kiriakopoulos seemingly cannot get out of the frying pan, and the moment he does, he's straight into the fire with Sauli Raitanen and Ewan Bremer fresh out the pits. Yeah,
and Kiriakopoulos wanting to probably take a breather down the stretch here, and it is not going to happen with pulling that train of Raitanen and Bremer. Raitanen is not shy, and he's not going to sit around and be satisfied with that P10. If he has a crack at Kiriakopoulos and sees some light inside of that radical, he's stuffing his car right through there.
I'll tell you who will need to be a little bit worried right now, and it's Horford Gullikson and James Barry, because I think Oscar Soltero's making a play for 6th place here today with the way he's driving. He's outdriven the leaders by a couple tenths on that last lap.
Yeah, Soltero, what has he done? Looks like his best is a 125.5. So he is definitely in rare air. There's a couple drivers with slightly faster laps, but Soltero has a really nice average and has been very, very consistent here. And we'll have to see how he does on his pit stops. Time is ticking down, and I sure hope he hasn't tried a fuel save on this one, because that second pit stop is absolutely required. He'll be penalized if he doesn't make it.
Well, he's got to make it. First and foremost, he's got to do more than anybody else out there at this moment. And again, deciding to stay out and go as late as he possibly can, give him the least amount of time. Runs a little bit wide, though, off the exit. Guy Robertson is another driver now who picks up the black flag for accruing too many incidents. And it is starting to be a big game. That is Guy Robertson now just leaving the pits. It's been a tough day for Guy right now in the toothless machine.
Yeah, and Soltero taking a pass through the parking lot there, and you got to be careful out in that area as well. You can pick up a slowdown as well as a 1X, which that most certainly was. And we're not privy to offs here on our scoring tower, but they do, not to beat a dead horse, but they do rack up very quickly around here.
They very much do. The way to tell Sebastian Lipp from Christoph Lipp in the cars right now, it's white trim for Sebastian Lipp. It is green trim for Christoph Lipp right now as they move closer here. Sorensen dropping down the order. What has happened here? He's now dropped 2 places. He's gone a bit deep at turn 3, and I say only a bit. It's enough to drop 2 spots. Gullikson through. Kettle Larsen also now up onto what is the net podium.
Yeah, and Larson would really like to come out of here with his 2nd podium of the season. He is the driver among that group with the highest number of points, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if they had planned to allow him through. It did look like a little error in P3, but they might have wanted to send their teammate up onto the podium for all the points that he could get for the championship.
So the waiting game continues with Oscar Soltero at 5 seconds clear, dangling in front of the group. We know he's got to come in and make a stop. If he doesn't, he gets penalized. Louis Gregg leading the AM category right now by what is going to be 5 seconds over Luke Crowley, with Gabriel Berger a further 3 seconds back of that. What a day from Louis Gregg. Not only is it going to be a case of him being the only driver to pick up 2 wins this season, they'll be back to back.
Yeah, great drive by him, and finally breaking the drought of repeaters here as we get right before the July break. And again, we haven't seen Greg pull off any insane Ayrton Senna type moves out there, but he has been quick, he's been consistent, he hasn't made any errors, and that's how he made that Bathurst victory come to him. So good work by Louis, and hopefully we'll get to chat with him after the race if he's able to bring this one home.
Very much a purple patch of form at the moment for Louis Gregg, with Horford Gullikson, Kettle Larsen and Lasse Sorensen then looking around. James Barry is desperately working hard to chase this group down right now, and they're doing a really good job, actually. They've halved the gap down from 4 seconds to 2.
Yeah, Barry digging deep here, and time running out, though. 6.5 minutes left. That's going to be probably about 4 laps.
He's in.
It's going to depend on... there he goes. Okay. That's Soltero finally burbling down the lane, coughing, spitting, and he's going to do 4 laps on his last fill. This is going to be a quick stop. So his whole race is going to depend on how quick that fuel goes in, how quick he can get back out of pit lane.
8 seconds, I reckon, would be a great stop time. 6 seconds, 6.2. What a monster stop by Oscar Soltero here. He'll come out behind 1, 2, and 3, or 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and he'll just be behind the group of James Barry and Mats Gjeström. Great work by Oscar Soltero.
Wow, that was insane. And the fuel goes into these cars out of a handheld fuel jug, so it does not go in fast. So Soltero somehow driving by himself all that time,
Whoa.
managing to do some fuel save.
Mistake for Kettle Larsen. Oh, another mistake. Spin for Mats Gjeström. 2 of the IGL cars in the same corner.
Oh, my goodness. And Larson, there goes that podium. And we're going to take another look here, or is this live? Oh, this
is
must be
live.
live. But yeah, a couple problems there for Larson. He was sitting pretty on a podium. And folks, this track is very tough on tires, both front and rear. It's tough on the fronts in places like this through 6 and 7. Tough on the rears, powering out of those slow corners, turn 1 and turn 3. And by the time the race is over after 1 hour, they are absolute rags. And you saw Larson bitten there.
Well, Horvath Gullikson started in 8th position, is now up onto the podium. 4:43 over the line, which leaves them with about 3 laps-ish to go, maybe 4 right now, as we'll take a little look at this mistake that's gone on through. You can see here, car 46, all on his own. And is this just a case of just throwing it a bit too deep in the corner? He gets a little bit of a swing, and then behind that, Gestra Backham just loops it even better.
Yeah, over-rotates that under braking. I really tried to keep my feet out of the pedals across that apex and keep the speed up, and it looked like he was still dragging the brakes a little bit. And Jake, I was wrong before. Of this group, Gullikson is actually the high points man. So they have put Gullikson either intentionally or not onto the podium, and this will be his 4th podium. So Gullikson, very consistent so far this season, and this is going to help his position in the championship.
They got James Barry behind, though, who will be eyeing them up, and so too Oscar Soltero with the very short pit stop. They can't do anything about the 2 Litt brothers who lead this field outright. There is Soltero in 7th position, trying to stay with James Barry because there is a sniff of a top 5. If you can be cheeky in the final couple of laps of this race, and keep an eye out on those times, because I think we are at 3 laps to go here with 3.5 minutes, because they're doing 1:26s, which would mean they're doing just a shade under 3 minutes. So this here for Sebastian Lipp, it's going to be a case of, can I find a way past Christoph, or am I happy just to follow in formation? A quarter of a second over the line. Surely Sebastian Lipp will have a little go at his brother to try and find a victory. There's pride in that.
At least be showing him his nose. And I was watching that gap from Barry up to Larson. It dropped significantly on the straightaway, but has opened back
Here
up
we go.
again, Barry. Oh, and there's the move.
Oh, he's backed out of it. Oh, but he's gone deep. Look at this. Christoph Lipp's gone deep, and there's another chance for Sebastian Lipp. He's really forcing mistakes out there now, and this might just be a confidence drop because they've got a gap that's so big. But Sebastian Lipp, again, lifts out of it over the top of the crest, and he really does show that he's got the ability to challenge and win this race.
Yeah, he absolutely does, showing his nose there again and saying, brother, I'm right here. I had you. If you keep making these mistakes, it's going to be hard to resist. But so far, Christoph hanging on to the lead with 2 minutes remaining. And Barry, once again, looking at his gap up to Larson's got under a second.
Dennis Kiriakopoulos in trouble. He's spun around. He's come together off the exit with Ewan Bremer, and Sally Raitanen had also spun as well. So a big, big lot of issues going at turn 3. It looks like Raitanen had his own little spin, and then off the exit, Ewan Bremer's just run over the back of Dennis Kiriakopoulos.
Oh my goodness, and these worn tires rearing their ugly head. Just a couple of minutes left, and tires are like a budget. If you take too many withdrawals, the money's not going to be there down the stretch when you need it. And we're seeing a few drivers looping it here toward the end, and we're very close, probably penultimate lap here, as you see the Lips heading up that long straight between turn 1 and turn 3 with a gaudy gap of 11 seconds back to Gullikson in P3.
It's a monstrous gap of 11 seconds, and here's a look at the replay. Dennis Kiriakopoulos then on the brakes. He just runs it deep, no contact between the two, and then Ewan Bremer has nowhere to go and runs over Kiriakopoulos. Raitanen is able to scamper on away, but you could see there a very tough day at the office for Dennis Kiriakopoulos right now. Bremer having to come into the pits with the black flag penalty, and let's say Sorensen has the black flag penalty as well as Kiriakopoulos. That's going to change quite a few things.
So Sorensen is going to have to pit here with just 2 laps remaining, and look at Barry's gap up to Larson, 0.3, and Barry may just laugh his way right up into P4 or a podium here. He's going to have to do it quickly, but he has a shot to make something happen down the stretch. And what a recovery drive by James Barry, bouncing off of that early incident.
It's lip versus lip at the front of the field with 1 lap to go. It is Christoph versus Sebastian, and as they sit and watch on this final lap, Sebastian has shown that he's got pace to go and try and make it happen, and it's not quite. Into the pits goes Lasse Sorensen to serve his penalty, and now puts James Barry into the top 5 and might even eye up 4th if he wants to. Down the hill they go, that gap closing on in to just a 2/10 margin, and Christoph Lipp needs a good drive off of the exit, because the last great place to make a pass will be turn 9, but the even better place than that is Rauch, turn number 4, if you want to go and make this happen. For the moment, Sebastian Lipp has shown nothing but consummate driving. These two have run away with each other and have known that it's a case of a brotherly alliance that has gone and worked for them, and they're not in the mood of breaking it just yet. Back in for 4th position, there's defences in for Kettle Larsen, who does just enough to stave James Barry off through turn 4, but out of Grath Corner, turn number 7, out on track. Christoph Lipp is now just 2 corners away out of 8, and knows he's still got a car length and a half to play with to his brother Sebastian. Through Jochen Rindt they will go. Is there any last throw of the dice when they reach the final corner? A big show of aggression on the brakes, but pay no lip service to that. Christoph and Sebastian, lip and lip, 1 and 2. Masterclasses in the field. James Barry wanting a way through for 5th, 4th place. He's going to get a run off the final corner. Oh, what a fantastic steal. Heading towards the line. Kettle Larsen with a slowdown, desperate to try and serve it. Does.
Wow. And Barry, you saw him lurking, patiently working his way up the field. And here comes Craig for his victory. Jake.
And Louis Gregg has had a wonderful showing, and not only is it a wonderful showing, it's a top 10 here today as well. He's got a couple cars between himself and Gonzaga, as Bjorklund here is slow heading over towards the line and crosses, but Louis Gregg back to back here at the Red Bull Ring.
And we have got to see, Ramiro, maybe you can show us what happened with James Barry. But Barry, we watched him grinding, recovering from that early incident, and finally cashes in through turn 9 and 10. We saw some action on the leaderboard, didn't see exactly what happened, but we'll see if we can show that to you. But Barry, what a fight back to finish in P4, and a couple more laps. He may have been able to reel in Gullikson as well. So great drive by him, and congrats to Craig, the first AM to win twice and one back-to-back.
Yep, some wonderful running, and we got good battling here towards the end, because you got the likes of those still trying to scrap it out and say that they did well. The likes of Ole Gunnar Stensrud and co were all there in play, looking to try and make something happen. But what a day at the office for the 2 Lipp brothers, who have found themselves away quite quickly. There's the 3-2-2 of Louis Gregg, your winner in AM category overall. I think now's as good a time as any here, as he starts burning it up into the wall. That's not quite how you do a burnout there as you go through classified results, and Christoph Lipp makes it an inert iRacing Team 2 1-2 out there, beating his brother Sebastian by a quarter of a second. Horford Gullikson would be the last car on the podium, as James Barry would steal it on the final corner against Kettle Larsen, who was desperate to serve the slowdown penalty he picked up and just managed it ahead of Oscar Soltero in 6th position. It would then be Mats Gestrombachen in 7th ahead of Lasse Sorensen, who had to serve a drive-through penalty on the last lap of the race. He'd finish ahead of Sally Reitinen in 9th, and Louis Gregg would round out the top 10 as your leading AM category driver. James Barry, by the way, the fastest lap of 25.288, as Jorge Gonzaga would be 11th ahead of Kim Andre Bjorklund. And then you had 3 AMs in a row, Crowley, Berger and Benson, then together for B Racing Team Project 91 Academy and Team Slow-Mo. Ewan Bremer had a couple of issues and would find himself a couple seconds ahead of Franek Sikorsky, who could have been on course for a podium here today. Dennis Kiriakopoulos in the action, and also having to deal with a drive-through penalty. Pablo Serrano was the best qualifying AM, but ultimately faded to 19th, along with Rudolf Nagel in 20th, leaving Ole Gunnar Stensrud, Andreas Friedrich and Menno de Graaf on the lead lap. 1 lap down for Robert Walker, Stefan Mellis, and then 2 laps down for Guy Robertson, meaning no retirees from racing today here at the Red Bull Ring. But that will give you a lot of information of what you need to know. This here is the final pass, JR, going to the outside at Jochen Rindt and having to go the long way round the road hard travelled.
Barry working the outside of turn 9 there and causes the competitor in front to wash out. And if you saw our coverage of the top split of the public server on Friday, that happened to Barry, was done by Christoph Lipp on the last lap. He lost P1 on that move, so I know that feels good for James to pull that one out of his quiver and stick it to his competitor to get up into P4. So beautiful move by Barry.
Out the quiver and fired, but we will have a chance to talk to some of our drivers. And first and foremost, I think we've got to go with our overall race winner here today, which is Christoph Lipp, who is going to have the opportunity to have a chat with us. I don't have the ability to bring him in, but I'm sure we'll have a moment here to have a chat with him as we get ourselves set and ready. Christoph Lipp here alongside with us. Christoph, strategy. I think that's the most important thing to talk about today, because you put a strategical masterclass, both you and your brother, on the rest of the field.
You say it, Jake. Exactly. That was the key. I think we had a plan. We had different plans, but this was our favorite plan. So the precondition was to be in front or in one of the front places after quali, and and then have a short second stint and make some meters, as we say in German, and then in the end it was bringing it home.
Yeah, you certainly made a lot of meters out there and did a wonderful job of doing so. But heading towards the end of the race there, it looked like Sebastian was trying to posture to say that, oh yeah, I could be a bit quicker. There was a couple of mistakes here and there. Was there a gentleman's agreement between both of you?
He said he won't attack me for the championship. I just had one or two bad exits and he was driving beside me. But that was not an attack. That was just showing the nose.
And so points you start picking up a lot more. Fuji aligns itself in August on the horizon. Long break between that. So are you going to be looking at trying to keep your nose in when it comes to the races on Friday and keeping yourself fighting fit for racing action when it comes along in about, about 5-6 weeks?
I will definitely drive Fridays when I have the time and the pace, and but I'm looking so much forward to Fuji. I haven't been driving that track for a long time, but it was always one of my favorites, so this will be so cool, and you can expect also some good battles there with the long straights, so yeah, looking forward.
Well, the floor is yours, Christoph. It's a victory overall. Is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, of course, to my brother for the great practice week we had together, for the super race, also for the team, and also greets to the rest of the team, to the iRacing team, and also to you guys, of course, for the great broadcast you always do.
Christoph Lipp there joining us and picking up the result of a race win, and a critical one at that as well. Moving down the paddock, JR Gregory has found himself with Horvath Gulliksen.
Oliver, great drive today, and so much action out there, and a couple of competitors had problems with the offs there. So talk to our audience a little bit about the challenges of keeping it clean out here at Red Bull Ring.
It's almost impossible to not get some off tracks. I think I got 13 or something. So a lot of off tracks, but I'm so sorry for Lasse. He had some, I don't know if it was the internet connection or something, but he got offs even when he was not off the track. So I don't know why, but for myself, happy with P3, of course. Started P8, had one counting lap in the quali, so yeah, happy.
Well, definitely an epic drive, and looking ahead, personally, I really love seeing these radicals out on these F1 tracks. You get a couple more in a row for the next 2 rounds. And do you have any thoughts about Fuji, which is next on the calendar after the July break?
No, it's too long break, so I'm not thinking about that yet. But you know it will be fun, I think.
Well, completely fair, and great work by you and the rest of the IGL Coatings team. And as we wrap up, is there anyone you would like to thank or give a shout out to today?
Yeah, as always, you guys for putting this show on. Very good. And congratulations to both the brothers Lipp for first and second place, all my teammates, and the team IGL Coatings and Sande Trafikkskole.
All right. Well, thank you, Håvard, and we'll look forward to seeing you out there soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Gullikson there joining us. A chance now to talk to your AM category winner here today. Back to back for Louis Gregg. Louis, that's going to be a really, really strong charge here. You're making the mid part of this season pretty much yours to try and contest. Talk us through your race, because it looked like you just kept it clean and everyone else around you seemingly had a little issue here and a little issue there.
Just keeping it clean. We managed to get a good start, stay out of a mess, keep the off tracks reasonably low for the start, and then it got to the first stop and we were sitting quite comfortably. Did the same strategy that we've basically done every race, and then the second stop pitted a bit early because the leaders came out literally right in front of me, and I thought, I'm not going to lose time behind them trying to get through the rest of the pros, so I just boxed and it ended up playing outright.
So a very strong day then for you, especially when you're considering that you're making this progress. Where do you think the gains have come from month to month as you've gone through the season, having a year-long season like we have here in this European Championship?
I think it's just been learning the car more and more and more, feeling a lot more comfortable. Like going back to Long Beach, that was a really good opening round, but I wouldn't say I was comfortable in the car. And now Bathurst, another good race that I was just comfortable. I'd put in the laps, I'd learn how to do things a bit better, and then just got comfortable with the brakes and the accelerator and stuff like that, because it is a tricky car to drive.
It is a very tricky car to drive, and we've certainly seen that, but it wasn't proven today because there were a case of no retirees over the course of racing action today. But for you, a top 10, which will certainly be a huge boon for you. And do you think that that form will continue when you head over after the summer break to August and to Fuji?
I'm not here for Fuji, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
So that's gonna be a tricky one. But I'm sure it'll be a great race for everyone, and I'll definitely be watching it.
Well, no 3 in a row here. You've heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Louis Gregg's going on holiday or whatever it is he plans to do. But Louis, floor's yours. Victory. How do you choose to celebrate, and who do you like to thank?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for Connor. He's been with me since round 1. Always there in voice chat with me, keeping me reasonably level-headed and getting the strategy perfect every race. It's been great.
Yep, and representing Somalia while he does it here in iRacing. So Louis Gregg joining us then here today and picking up the victory overall in AM category. A championship leader also would like a little bit of a word. JR Gregory stood by.
Luke, a little bit of a tough race today. You were sitting pretty there early on. You had Craig probably about 3 or 4 seconds back of you and got involved in some fighting with some drivers up in the pro class. And so I got to ask you, what was behind the decision to scrap with those guys? I know that you need every point that you can get, but a little bit of contact there in turn 3 cost you. You look like you had victory pretty well in hand.
Yeah, it's a little bit gutting that, to be fair. I mean, it's a thicker racing, and when you're there, you want to have fun, don't you? So I was going for it, and, you know, like you say, every point counts. Maybe it wasn't the best decision in the end, but, you know, I'd still make the same decision again if I went for it. So.
Well, like the cliche goes, if you don't go for those gaps, then you're not really racing. So totally fair. And you still ended up with, I think, a P2 out of that. So definitely a good drive. You're definitely still sitting in very good shape on the season championship. You're 6 rounds through. So as we head into the summer break here, do you have any thoughts to share with us about the upcoming schedule? A couple of Formula One tracks in a row here to follow Red Bull Ring, starting with Fuji. So what are your thoughts about keeping the speeds up and keeping the competition hot here on these high-speed circuits?
Well, Fuji is one of my favorite tracks. That's not to say I'm any good at it, but, you know, it's one of my favorites, so I'm quite looking forward to that one. Everything after that, we'll see, but I'm hoping for some good pace at Fuji.
All right. Well, it's definitely going to be a thrill to roll down that long straightaway and get the draft on Fuji. That's the longest straight, I believe, in the Asia Pacific region. So we'll be looking forward to doing that with you. And as we wrap up, is there anyone you would like to shout out or give thanks to today?
Shout out to Louis. It was a great race. Really good consistency on that, and he deserved the win. So congrats, Louis.
All right. Well, thanks, Luke, for coming by and sharing your thoughts with us. And we look forward to seeing you in Japan in several weeks' time.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Well, there you have it. Luke Crowley there having a wonderful chat with us. It will be a little while for us in terms of when we're next with you with the European Championship here of Radical Sim Racing. But here it is, August 17th, which is the day after my wedding, believe it or not, over at Fuji Speedway. So you'll definitely want to jump in and get in on that. You can catch that at, of course, 9 o'clock Central European time. So make sure that you jump on in and join in with that. One of the most beautiful circuits out there to go and get amazing racing and battling in. And if you ever have the chance to drive there, I truly recommend it. But from the entire team who's brought this show to you here today, we've also got to note that the Americas will be at the Glen next Saturday in terms of more racing action from JR Gregory, Ramiro Agustin Cisneros, who has been on the cameras. I've been Jake Sperry. That is a day where you just need tactics to work, and everyone else will be looking to try and jump away and try and catch. Nobody could hold a candle in the wind to Christoph and to Sebastian. It was a case of lips sealing the deal out there here today. Nobody could stop them, and it's one which they'll have a huge smile on, knowing they take advantage heading into the summer break. Not a problem. Thank you, everyone. That was a good show.
Yeah, that was great, man. Thanks for coming